December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
I find that a lot of the high school kids don't know very much other than watching the movie Pearl Harbor. And it's a shame. I was born in New York City on February the 22nd, 1918. The day after I graduated, there was a long line. We were in the midst of a depression. There was a long line for the bread line. There was no line for the chow line to get in the Army, and I joined the Army. I joined the Army Air Corps, was sent to Randolph Field. I did basic training for only 3 weeks. The Army Air Corps was starting to build up. They sent me to Chanute Field, went to school there for 1 full year. When I finished the mechanic school up there, I was able to take an airplane down, tear it all the way down, lay it on a hangar floor, and build it back up. Well, we went on a train to Brooklyn, got on a boat, went through the Panama Canal, came up to San Francisco in September the 1st or 2nd, or October the 1st, 2nd. England declared war on Germany that day. We stayed in port an extra day to put a flag on the ship so we wouldn't be sunk by Germans. Went to Hawaii. In Hawaii, I was sent to Luke Field. Now, Luke Field was in Pearl Harbor. It is now called Ford Island. We moved from Luke Field to Hickam Field. Now, our routine there was fantastic. All it consists of is Monday was a full day of flying. The airplanes had to be down around 3 o'clock, and the airplanes we had were B-18s. Tuesday was a half a day of work. The airplanes had to be down by noon, and was athletics. And my athletics consist of going to Waikiki Beach and watching the girls. We had gotten B-17s in now. I was a flight engineer on the B-17, a crew chief on a B-18. 30 days before Pearl Harbor, we went on alert. Alert consisted of, we took our airplanes to the other side of the hangar, we put them in bunkers, and we did our training, normal training from there. But we stayed on the airplane 30 days. We slept under the airplane. A meal truck would come out and feed us. Early in the morning, we were able to go back to the barracks and take a shave and a bath, a shower. The Friday before December the 7th, we came off alert. Now, somebody thought, which was logical at the time, to put the airplanes together to avoid sabotage. Well, my rest of the crew, on Friday they helped around, then they went to town. But I had a lot of work to do on the airplane, minor things that wouldn't affect the safety of flight, but it was easier to run from the airplane into the hangar and get the parts. Sadly, I went to town and I got drunk. Sunday morning, I was asleep. I got back to to Hickam about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, went to sleep, and the first thing I heard, an explosion. Thinking it was Fort Kamehameha that shot these big 18-inch guns into the water. I was thinking it was them, and I turned over and I said, don't they know this is Sunday and I want to sleep? I turned over and I heard an airplane buzz the barracks and with the cannon shooting. 3 beds for me. In the war locker was a big hole. I knew something was wrong. I got on my fatigues, went outside, and it was the first time in my life I had seen a dead person. I seen these men sleeping on the parade ground, appeared to be sleeping. They were dead. If it hadn't have been for the old sergeants that had been in the old First World War, we might have had a lot of more casualties. He told us that you men have got airplanes, get them away from the burning hangars. Now, the distance between the barracks and the hangar was about 150 yards. When I got to go on my airplane, there was one of the members of the 31st Bomb Squadron. He was hitting a leg. He was laying next to the hangar, and the hangar was burning. I picked him up to move him away from the hangar, and he was telling me, "Thank you, Sergeant, thank you, Sergeant," thanking me, Sergeant, for moving him. And I remember that distinctly, and on our reunions, he would tell everybody that I saved his life, and not really. I just got him away from the hangar. I ran to my airplane, I started my #1 engine up, started the #4 engine. The reason you start those engines, they have hydraulic pumps and I would have brakes. I started, the #4 started a taxi up, and the Japanese made a strafing run down the flight line, hit my #3 engine with me in the airplane. I didn't get hit, and put a hole in my propeller and my one of my cylinders. I got out of the airplane, was able to get a tug and a tow bar and get it back to the other side of the field. Now the rumors were just unbelievable that the Japs had landed on the other side of the island and they were coming over, and anybody in the air, including our own airplanes, were shot down. Approximately 2 o'clock in the morning, my flight chief, I could hear him hollering, and he had a tug with just a little bit light on it. They had taped all the way, the lights, so just a little beam come out, and he was hollering, "Where's Rothman?" And he says, "He's 2 bunkers down," and he came up to me and says, "You'll be in operations in 1 hour. You're going out to looking for the Japs." I says, "I can't. My airplane is busted." He says, "You've got a good airplane. You're going out looking for them." I says, "Well, I'm not walking through there because they're shooting at everybody." So he says, "I'll come and get you," and he come and got me. We went into briefing. We put, I think it was 2 500-pounders bombs in, went out looking for them. Well, we took off. We went southwest looking for the Japanese. I assure you, if we'd have went northeast, I would not be here today. Now the routine after that was we'd fly in all directions, 5 or 6 airplanes, different degrees on the compass. We go 800 miles out, a 100-mile turn, and then come back in. This was 6 days a week of flying, that type of boring missions. In June the 3rd, we were alerted to go to Midway Island. We got on Midway, and on the 4th of June, we went out on a search mission, and we ran in. To me, I had never seen so many ships in the water. We were flying at 10,000 feet, and the whole ocean was loaded with ships. It was a Japanese advanced fleet coming into Midway. We dropped bombs on them. The crew says we hit a troop transport, and some of the guys said we hit a supply ship. We came back, went out the next day looking for them. We couldn't find them, but the Navy got them, got the carriers. We never seen any carriers. Went back back to Midway. We were there for 3 more days. Then went back to Hickam. 2 days after Hickam, I was told I'm being transferred. I'm going to Australia to turn in my bedding, pay my dues, club checks, show tickets, whatever I had. I got to Hickam. I met a crew. It was a captain, and there was 3 other airplanes going on to Australia. Now my airplane, they brought me in to tell me that my airplane had 8 cans, 50 caliber ammunition cans loaded with gold. We were taking it to Australia. Now, I never had any larceny in me until then. I figured I'm gonna bury this gold. This is a strange crew to me, I don't know them. I'm gonna bury this gold and come back after the war and get it. Everybody's gonna be killed but me. Well, we took off from Johnson, Fiji Islands. Now, when we got to Fiji, a little Fijian kid, 6 years old, I was the first one out of the airplane with the chocks, and I usually walk under each engine to see if I have any oil leaks. He come up to me and he said to me with a wave of his hand, "Son of a bitch." I said, "What'd you say?" And he related it, did it again, "Son of a bitch." As everybody got out of the airplane, he greeted them with that word, "son of a bitch." So I knew Americans had been there before me. We landed at Sydney. We fueled up. 2 airplanes went on up to Darwin. We went to Melbourne, unloaded the gold. It was from MacArthur. Stayed overnight there. Next day we went to Darwin. Now I was in the war. 10 minutes after takeoff from Darwin, we were in enemy waters. Now our missions there was 3 types. There was either a search and destroy, a supply mission to our islands that we still had, or a bombing mission. On one of the missions that we were on, it was on a search and destroy mission, we ran into about 4 or 5 ships, and they sent flak up at us. The flak hit my number 3 engine and the cockpit at the same time. It killed my co-pilot immediately, just tore his face right off from the flak. I was in the upper turret looking backwards. A piece of flak hit my co-pilot, hit my pilot. He had a little of his arm torn off, the skin of his arm torn off. With the help of the radio operator, I was able to get the co-pilot out, walk him through the bomb bay, laid him down, covered him over with a blanket, got in the seat, bandaged up the pilot, and then my fatigue started to stick to me. Now, the pilot said at our reunions, the first time he only had to slap me 3 times to get me to quit crying. At the last reunion, it was up to 8. Well, they bandaged me up. I had a little bleeding pretty bad. They put some bandage around me, and I was the only one of the crew that had ever made a landing and a takeoff in a B-17. We practiced for just this type of an incident. Now, I was gonna have to bring the airplane back to Darwin and land it. Well, I landed it. Again, the pilot said, "He almost kills us on the landing." I bunny hopped it down there about 3 or 4 times, but I got it safe. For that, I received 2 awards. I got a Purple Heart, which I didn't want, and I received a Distinguished Flying Cross for bringing the airplane back. I think these guys gave a lot more than I did. They gave their lives. It's very difficult for me to talk about it from my friends that I lost. Like on one airplane, they were taken off and they lost power and the whole crew was killed. Bombs burst. And they were my very, very good friends. It's difficult for me to reminisce or talk about any of them. The only thing I hope is that we are prepared. Our leaders will keep us prepared. And my hat's off to everybody in the military, especially the ones that are in the wars now. At least I knew in the war I was in who my enemy was. And these guys don't know. It could be a kid, it could be a woman. I have the utmost admiration and respect for these guys.